Hi guys, if you are thinking about picking up a Canon APS-C camera, one of the new fancy ones, you have two options. You have the Canon R10 and you have the Canon R7, and maybe you can't decide between both of them. Well, I tell you what, I have been using these cameras for about a month, so maybe this video will help you, or maybe it won't. Watch it to the end anyway, that's really good for the algorithm, so let's talk about it. So first off, big thanks to BandH Photo who lent me both of these cameras for a month, a full calendar month, which is great. I can do some real tests, I can do some real footage, get to know the cameras pretty well, and so go shop at BandH Photo if you don't already, and you probably already do, but those guys are absolutely fantastic. Now this particular video is not going to be too spec heavy because I did a whole video comparing the R10 to the R7 in specs alone when I didn't have the cameras with me. So you can go check out that video when you're finished watching this one, and oh, that'd be great for the algorithm. Just keep watching my videos on a loop if you don't mind, but you'll go see the full specs from that video, and in this one it's going to be more concrete, solid footage examples. And now let's talk a bunch about video, because this channel is mostly featuring video. I will put these two cameras in the auto modes out there in Handsome Alley, and you can take a look at what it looks like when you just press the auto mode. Really quite similar images, I must say so myself, but now when I try to do the best that I can out in the alley using my color grading or a leaming LUT, I will use C-Log 3 on the R7, which is a big one, and I will use the 10-bit HDR mode on the R10. Now both are absolutely fantastic images, but I love having C-Log 3, especially if you want to use a camera like you're looking at right here, the Canon R5C, and you want to have a B camera. Canon R5C you can shoot in C-Log 3, then you can shoot this guy in C-Log 3, match up your footage pretty easily. And this guy, if you want 10-bit, you got to do the HDR. So I really wish this had C-Log 3 as well, but they didn't put that in there, they put it in this guy. Now in terms of dynamic range, I think you get much more out of the R7, especially with that C-Log 3. Here's a little thing I did where I sat and I was very backlit and I was completely in shadows, and then I tried to bring back the image. The R7 did quite well and the R10 not so much. Now, when it comes to photos, both will take fantastic photos. They are modern cameras. They are modern Canon cameras. Of course, the photos look great, but this one here is 24 megapixel sensor. This is a 33 megapixel sensor. So if you plan to print very large or you want to do a lot of cropping, then the 33 megapixels will definitely help you out in that regard. Now, they both shoot 15 frames per second in mechanical shutter, and I would shoot both of these in mechanical shutter. You can shoot more electronic shutter. I think it's 30 for this guy versus 23 for this guy, but the rolling shutter is present on both cameras, more so in the R10, but I would stick to mechanical shutter for both of them anyway, so they both do 15 frames per second. However, there are a bunch of things that you might want to consider when taking photos. There's the 33 megapixels, but there's also the 1/8000th of a shutter speed on this guy, so a faster shutter. This one has a 1/4000 maximum shutter speed. This guy's EVF has a better magnification, even though they're both 2.36 million dot EVFs. It should be a little bit better, I think, on the R7, but at least the magnification is better on the R7, so it will actually look better in the EVF compared to this guy. And speaking of looking better, the LCD screen on this guy is much better. So something like a 1.6 million dots versus barely a million dots. I think it's 1,000,004 dots for the Canon R10. So the viewfinder looks better, the screen looks better, the shutter speed is faster, and it has 2 card slots. So you can write the photos to both cards, you can write the videos to both cards as well, but we're talking about photos right now. So when it comes to professional shooting, then I think that you gotta do an R7. And now let's move on to stability. This guy has real IBIS. It has in-body image stabilization, and it's quite good. But you know, the R10 does have electronic stabilization, and that is really not that bad. So I will show you now some side-by-side footage of these 2 cameras using all of the stabilization modes. I much prefer the R7 when it comes to stability. You don't really even need the digital stabilization in my opinion, because the actual IBIS is quite good. Then you can throw on the E-stabilization to make it even smoother. Now this guy, he gets the job done. I'm glad he has the electronic stabilization, but this is a definite win for the R7. But a place where the R7 doesn't really seem to win, it doesn't seem to be much better, is in low light. Here is a little low light test I did, and neither of these cameras are fantastic in low light, so they just didn't do as well as, say, my Sony and my Nikons in these types of tests. However, compared to each other, they pretty much the same. Now, a place where they are not the same is with rolling shutter. The R7 does better in rolling shutter. It's still present on the R7, and so if rolling shutter is a big problem for you, then I wouldn't pick up the R7 either. But the R7 is definitely better than the R10. Check this out. Now they both do 120 frames per second, but the 120 frames per second is a little bit soft on this particular camera. It's nothing to write home about, but it is 120 frames per second, so you get that nice slow motion, and you know, you can always sharpen it up a little bit in post. And when it comes to sharp, this guy actually does 4K 60 quite well if you use the crop mode. It does crop in a lot. I think it's 1.8 times it crops in from the 4K mode to get the 4K 60 to be very sharp, but it's still, you know, and then they give you the option of shooting 4K not cropped, which is great. You still have 4K, but then that is softer. That is a line skip 4K. It is not the downsampled from 7K that the 4K fine is on this particular camera. So for me, I would try to stick with the 4K 60 crop mode, because that will look a nice bit sharper. And just check it out here compared to the R10 and its 4K 60, which is cropped in at 1.6 times and is still, you know, pretty soft. also better battery life on the R7. I got 2.5 hours of recording time on one battery on this guy. Is in 4K fine. Absolutely crazy. On the R10 I got 82 minutes, so you get 150 minutes compared to 82 minutes, almost double the 4K recording time. It's also weather sealed. There's no weather sealing on the R10. You can take this guy out in the elements and you'll be fine. You have a headphone port for monitoring your audio. That is not on the R10, and you know, the dynamic range is better on this guy too with the old C-Log 3. So now what do I think after using these two cameras for about a month? Now this guy is $1,500, which is substantially more than this guy who is $979. So you got about $1,000, you got about $1,500. And is it worth it? The answer to me is yes. I think that this price difference is definitely worth it. You get much more for the Canon R7. The IBIS, the 2 card slots, just the faster shutter speed, the C-Log 3. There's just so much more going on in this camera. You can use it as a B cam to their fancy cinema cameras, or an R5 or an R6, and it's just great. That 4K 60, you can also make it pretty sharp. It's just, there's so much in this, and the build quality, my goodness. Like the R10 is a very small little camera. It's reminiscent of like an M50. It's a little bit chunkier. It has a better grip than the M50. It feels better than the M50, and it is a bit bigger than that. But this R7 is a substantial camera. It's not small and light. So, I mean, that could be a con for you, really. This guy is something like 612 grams, and this guy is 426. I said something like, and then I said the exact numbers because I looked over at my computer. But obviously this is much lighter, so if you want a nice light setup and you're using gimbals and things like that, that's actually a real advantage for the R10. However, if you're just carrying the camera around in your hands, this guy just, it's solid, it feels good. Like, listen to this. Do you hear that door? Oh, just the little things. That car door is just so well made, and it feels so good to use. The camera feels good in your hand or anywhere else you put it, for that matter. And the grip, you know, your pinky doesn't slip off like it does on this little guy. This just, it feels more premium. It is more premium. I personally think the R10 probably should have been a little cheaper. Even as cheap as it is compared to this guy, this camera to me is worth its money, and this guy I think should have been about $100, maybe $200 cheaper, you know? Now don't get me wrong, you can get great images out of this camera. I mean, you saw the 4K PQ HDR, you know, you gotta fool around a little bit because you have to get an external monitor because of the zebras. They don't really show up on the R10 when you are doing it past, I think, 75, and the histogram disappears when you press record. So you're going to want an external monitor when you are setting this guy up, but you can do that. It's great, you know, for studio work, as long as you can get the lenses that are appropriate for it. You know what, while we're on that, let's just talk about it. These cameras, the only 2 lenses available for these cameras, for the APS-C specifically, are on these cameras. Right here, we got the 18 to 45 and the 18 to 150. And, you know, these are kit lenses. They're okay. They're not great. I wouldn't want to use these as any kind of studio lens or anything like that, or even a photography lens. And so what you need to do is make sure that you go out and find the lenses that you're looking for. You know, Canon is not going to be letting third-party manufacturers make lenses in the current situation anyway. I don't know how things will go in the future, but as of, what is it, September 14th, 2022, Canon is just making lenses for their own camera. And, you know, maybe by the time you see this, or maybe soon, Canon will release a ton of APS-C lenses that have low apertures and are affordable. But until they do, then your best bet is to maybe adapt some EF glass with an adapter, or find yourself some full-frame RF lenses that suit your needs. Go ahead. Get whichever one you want, or get none of them. I don't care, although I do care. If you go through my affiliate links, I will care huge. I appreciate all of that. And if you just want to get into the Canon system, or you want a second camera or something like that, you can definitely make the R10 work. So this thing is still a great camera. It's just not as great as this. So B&H just sent me an email today saying they want them all back now. So it's a sad day over here at the Camera Crisis. What is this? Man cave? I'm sweating my guts out here. It's just, even though these are LEDs, but I'm still warm because I'm blocked in with the sound blankets. That's the problem. Yeah, anyway, you don't need to know about this. You can't smell me through the camera, but just thanks to B&H, you know, for sending these over. I really appreciate it. It gives me a chance to explore these cameras and report my findings to you guys while I talk about my own personal body odor. Anyway, thanks for watching. Please come back. Ignore all that last stuff I said. Okay, bye-bye.